on some of the other bird rooms and some alterations, so I'd stopped doing the videoing. What we're seeing here is the birds virtually independent now. Chicks have just hatched in the new nest, so the parents are a little bit excited. This pair of birds have always taken a back position to some of the others. In fact, what you can really say is they've been substitutes because they were a bit difficult to place. But as they were getting quite old, I had to put them together in the best position I could to continue the bloodline, which they've done really well. As you can see, he's keen for his live food. Cock here's got his token feather, which he's going to take to the nest with him when he goes in. You often find that many of the species do this. It's a ritual they have. It's not to be confused with you thinking they build a nest. Many species take a feather every time they go to the nest, often putting it over the front of the entrance hole. Much prized after these feathers. They give your birds as many of these as you can, and it'll stop them plucking themselves, and they'll use them to line the nest. Nest basket on the left is the one that's got the chicks in. This pair of birds, you know, they do look old, but it doesn't matter, they've still done the job. As you can see, the hen's lost a feather in round her ears, but she's keen to get some food and feed her chicks, which is ideal behaviour and what you want to see. As you can see, this bird's feeding itself, and the parents don't have to worry about these birds now. They'll look after themselves. All you have to do is provide them with the food. Here the chicks are now independent. They could be taken away from the parents at this stage. However, the next round of chicks are due to come out shortly, and if I go in there and disturb anything, there's every chance that they'll desert them. So these chicks have got to stay in until another time. As they don't seem to interfere in any way, it's not doing any harm. The adults don't attack the chicks, or I've not seen it, and I've bred well, close on 3 figures of these birds, and the chicks don't do much other than perhaps eat a little bit too much live food. This is a young yellow-winged Petilia chick. It's in a fostering situation under the Bengalese, and the parents were imported birds. They wouldn't try live food, they wouldn't try egg food, and they threw the previous chicks out. This is the cock in his own cage. I'd only had them 2 weeks from the previous owner. They went to nest. As I say, unfortunately they didn't feed the chicks and let them die. It was too early for the seeding grasses, as it must have been around March, April time. Here are the chicks now. You can see a few of them on the floor. They've now fledged. They're not oil paintings at this stage. They would have died if I'd have left them with their parents. So this was my alternative, and you can save chicks in this way if you want to do so. Can't sex them. Well, I can't sex them at this stage. Can do a bit later. I did save 3 clutches of these, and what I got was 2 hens and 7 cocks. The big difference is that the chicks love the egg food, and hopefully when their time comes to have a go at breeding, perhaps they will feed the chicks. Only time can tell on that one. There are 4 birds in here. You can't tell at this stage. 3 cocks and 1 hen. We will see them a bit later. Here they are, a little bit older. It's a bit better picture this. As I say, I don't like doing too much indoors because the lighting gets on the bars. You can see they're growing and they're a bit more active here. You can't see it very well with the lighting, but the ones with the red on the head obviously going to be the cocks. This is a young hen cordon blue in the nest. She's only a baby from last year, what we've seen earlier. She's with another cock that I got from a friend, which again is only a youngster. They're probably both under a year old. And what happened was they'd got the chicks. They were fertile eggs, and they wouldn't feed them, which they're only babies. It perhaps to be expected, and you'll see their babies shortly in a fostering situation under the Bengalese. As you can see, she's a bit nervous. She should be sat in there, but she's watching me. Perhaps I should have had the basket facing away from me. This is a young pair of blue caps. This cock might be one that we saw earlier. It's one of the birds from the old pair. This again is a young hen, so unfortunately they were this pair wouldn't feed the chicks first time either, so I took 5 chicks and 1 egg off these and put them under the old pair of blue caps that we saw earlier. Say this is another year, so and you'll see them later. This again is a young blue cap from the clutch I mentioned earlier. He was one of the fostered birds which I saved before they eventually started feeding their own. So he was one of the older ones. Again, I put him to an older hen, and he's got a few chicks of his own, which you'll see shortly. Again, proving that this theory about fostered birds being no good. Well, this cock is under a year old, and there's his first chick, and there's another one in there somewhere. That's a better view of it. It's a young hen, as you can see. There's no blue down from the wing area to the chest. You can't see the exact size of it here, but what they are in the inner flight, 6'6" high, 6 foot long, and about 3 foot wide. And they're in there with 3 cock gold breasts, which were just 3 spare birds, which I didn't have mates for. You see both parents with the chicks not far away. Here are both chicks together, and as you can see, there's very little blue on the chest area under the wing. They are both hens. As you can see, they're quite settled, which is good for the first day out. This is a bunch of rotting bananas. As you can see on there, they're fruit flies. There'll be quite a lot of grubs in there, and they're just handy for the birds to come and get and feed to the chicks. And there you can see it a bit better, what exactly it is. Unfortunately, it's covered with bird droppings. It does pay to have your own strain of birds. Certainly beneficial in future times. Here we have the Bengalese I mentioned earlier. These are the young cordon bleu chicks that are in there with it. I've had to take this nest box off so that you can see it, and I've turned it round, and I'm doing the video in through the door. So if the bird looks a bit anxious, that's only to be expected. But they are very adaptable, these Bengalese. Are absolutely marvellous birds. What I tend to do is I use my most reliable birds for fostering. Birds which I know I can trust. And as long as you don't overtax them, don't give them too much to do, they'll usually do a good job for you, as long as they're fit and ready. And then after a couple of clutches, then give them a rest and use another reliable set of birds. It's if I hadn't have intervened here, these chicks would have died also. There you can see a little cordon. You can see its crop's quite full of egg food. This is the sort of thing you wouldn't normally be able to get into their nest. You wouldn't want to go poking about, but you can see what's happening with the Bengalese, as they're very tolerant of you looking at the chicks. Marvellous birds. Here you can see the chicks are a bit older, and they're now feathered up. And the parents will, the foster parents, the Bengalese will have stopped brooding them. It's nice and warm in this shed, so they're at no risk. If these birds were out in cold weather, then that's when they can come susceptible, and they could die when the parents stop brooding. But in the indoor bird room, they're safe. It's plenty warm enough in here. A bit shorter after this. I wouldn't be coming in here. This is when they get a bit older. They get nervous and they'll fly straight out of the box. There's just 3 chicks in here. This is the cage. As you can see, that's how the box is. I turned it round to look through the door at it. And there are the 2 Bengalese foster parents. They're given a good quality diet to feed to the chicks without live food. This is another one of the young blue caps from last year. Again, he's only a young bird. And again, I've put him to an older hen, and this behaviour, as you can see, is exactly what I want to see, because normally he won't come down here to feed while I'm in the bird room, and I know he's got chicks in there, and as you can see, he's keen to get back to those chicks and to feed them. In fact, they're not very far off fledging at this stage. And that's his nest where he's near to. He'd like to go back in there, but while I'm here, he's reluctant to do it. As you can see, he looks a very proud father. This is the nest of a gold-breasted waxbill. I think this is the hen in there at the moment. She's quite low down. She's got chicks in there. What I tend to do is I fill the boxes or the baskets partly myself, and I make sure the bottom is well enough covered with coconut fibre and what have you that the eggs can't fall through, because this is always a problem. And then I give the birds a certain amount of material and let them finish it off themselves. The good thing about it being so low down is that if the birds are disturbed and come out quickly for any reason, then they won't drag an egg or a chick out by mistake as they do so. Here you can see both parents on top of the nest basket. They're trying to coax the young chicks to come out. Here you can see the young cordon blues again. And here again is the blue cap. And you can see how keen he is for that live food. I do tend to be going close quite a bit because it's often better lighting than when I'm at a distance. But, and I think you can see appreciate something when you see these birds this close, which you can't normally see, you know, when you're quite a way away from them. You might see the hen's beak is quite paler than the cock's. That is what I'd expect to see in a bird that's about a year old. Birds older than that often show a black tip to it, but birds in a year old, it's usually a plain pink or almost purple beak sometimes. Little gold breast cock back there, feeding for his chicks. It gives me a lot of pleasure when I know that my birds will feed their own chicks. It's far better than imported birds, much more reliable. You can't beat having birds from your own bird room. They don't know different, they've never been in the wild. They know you, they know your environments, and they settle much better, and they can't wait to get to breed. As I say, not all of them will feed the chicks. You must persevere, give them plenty of chances. You might just see with that hen, the black on the tip of her beak. Say she is an older bird. Now the gold breast hen can get a little bit of live food while the blue caps are away. Here he is back again. The hen that is with were an imported bird. When I get birds like that, I keep them for a good while because you don't know their age. They're usually babies, so you might as well just give them 12 months or so to settle. Eventually they'll be ready for breeding. This is the young cordon blue chicks we saw earlier with the foster parent. Not been out of the nest long. They are quite steady. They always seem steadier when they've been fostered than when they're with their own parents. That's one good thing about it. And another thing you can do with these birds is you can try them in smaller cages. They might just be steady enough to breed in these things. The only problem is that when you take them away from the Bengalese and they have perhaps a bit more space, they tend to get a bit wilder. These are the young 4 young yellow-winged petiliers again. 3 cocks to the right. You might just hen to the left, as you can see there. You can probably just see the bits of red appearing on their heads there. Unfortunately, I said I had an imbalance of cocks. Everybody you speak to always want hens, they never want cocks. I used to have this theory that pointless getting a cockbird on its own, as you'd have difficulty getting an hen, but I think the benefits of a captive bred bird is well worth having, and even if it meant going to an importer to get an hen for it. That captive bred bird is a bit more special. It's never known a life in the wild. As I say, these birds, they're eating egg food and everything, so there's no problem getting them on the diet, no problem acclimatising them because they're already here. This is a pair of common firefinches. Red one is the cock, brown one's the hen. This cockbird's a bit too aggressive for my liking. He's a bit, as you can see, he's pecked around the head a bit, which is they're usually much gentler nature than this. That's a better view of them. They are both young birds, these. The hen is a little bit older than the cock. I got